Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. Amber waited until after dinner. She didn't touch her wine. I was clearing the plates when she said, "Can we sit down for a minute?" Her voice was measured, like she'd rehearsed it. We moved to the couch. I leaned back, expecting some small talk about work. Instead, she looked straight at me and said, "Eric, I'm not attracted to you anymore. I need an alpha." I didn't answer right away. The words hung between us, heavy and deliberate. She kept talking, filling the silence. "You're dependable. You're solid. But you're too quiet. I want someone who takes the lead, someone who owns the room." It wasn't coming out of nowhere. For months, she'd been a little more guarded. Less conversation over dinner, fewer weekends together, more nights claiming she had late calls. I'd noticed, but I hadn't pushed. I studied her. 5 years together, and now she was giving me a corporate performance review. We'd spent most of that time working at the same company, even in the same building. Me in operations, her in project management. "You've already found someone, haven't you?" I asked. Her eyes didn't flinch. "Blake Mercer. You know him. Business development lead at our company. Loud, always in tailored suits, able to talk for 20 minutes without saying anything useful, and constantly working the room like he was the main character." Amber leaned forward like she was explaining a smart investment. "Blake's going for head of strategic partnerships. I've been helping him, giving him insight from my side. He's exactly the kind of man I should be with, ambitious, decisive." "You've been feeding him information?" I kept my tone flat. "It's not like that. It's collaboration," she said quickly. "Besides, when he gets that position, he'll be in a place to make real moves. That's the kind of energy I want in my life. That's alpha." I let her finish, then asked, "So what now?" "I'll start looking for a new place. Give me a couple of weeks." She said it like we were negotiating a lease extension. I looked at her, not blinking. "I understand," I said. That was it. No arguments, no pleading. She mistook my calm for surrender. And that was fine, for now. Because she didn't know what I knew, and she didn't see what was coming. A few days before that conversation, I'd been in Helena Carter's office. Helena was the CEO of our company, a sharp, detail-oriented woman who didn't waste time on small talk. She'd called me in after a quarterly review. "Eric, you've been running point on 3 cross-department projects without the title or the pay. We need someone who can coordinate operations, compliance, and project execution without the drama. I want you as head of strategic programs." It was a big step. The role meant overseeing not just the teams I already influenced, but also gatekeeping initiatives from business development, Blake's territory. I told her I needed time to think. I liked designing systems and solving problems. Management politics never appealed to me. She gave me a week. By the time Amber gave me her little alpha speech, my decision was made. Turning it down now would look like her assessment was right. Accepting wasn't about ambition anymore. It was about principle. The next morning, I was in Helena's office before 9. "If the position's still open, I'll take it," I said. Her mouth curved into a small smile. "Good. The announcement goes out Wednesday at the all-hands." I thanked her, left her office, and went back to my work as if nothing had happened. That evening, Amber was on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't notice me come in. "Yeah, Blake, it's looking good," she was saying. "When you get the position, we'll have so much leverage. You'll run partnerships, I'll steer projects. No one will be able to block us." I poured myself a glass of water, walked past her without comment, and closed my office door. She thought Wednesday was going to be Blake's big day. It was going to be mine. Wednesday morning, the entire company gathered in the atrium for the quarterly all-hands. Coffee cups, quiet chatter, everyone waiting for Helena to take the stage. Amber stood near the front with her project team, phone in hand. Blake was beside her, wearing a blue suit that looked like it belonged in a campaign ad. He caught me looking and gave me a nod, the kind you give someone you think is irrelevant. Helena stepped up to the microphone. "We have an important leadership update," she said. "After a thorough review, I'm pleased to announce our new head of strategic programs, Eric Collins." It was instant. Blake's smile froze. Amber didn't move at first, then her phone slipped slightly in her hand. I walked to the stage, shook Helena's hand, and turned toward the crowd just long enough to catch Amber's eyes. She looked like she was still trying to process what she'd heard. When the applause ended, I stepped down and made my way through the cluster of employees. Blake slapped on a grin and offered his hand. "Congratulations, man," he said. His grip was just a little too tight. "Appreciate it," I said, pulling away. Amber intercepted me near the hallway to the offices. "So, this is what that calm routine was about?" Her voice was low, controlled. "This is about me taking a job," I said. "Nothing more." "Right," she said with a tight smile. I didn't respond. I walked past her and into my new office, the one that came with glass walls and a view of the whole floor. From there, I could see Blake leaning against Amber's desk, talking fast. She glanced up at my window once, then looked away. They both knew things had just shifted. By the end of my first week, I called a cross-department review. My new role meant every major initiative had to pass my desk before resources could be locked in. That included Blake's prize, the Kepler Freight Partnership. It was the project he'd been bragging about for months, the one Amber had been quietly helping him push. We met in Conference Room B. Blake arrived with a thick binder and the kind of grin you wear when you think the win is already yours. Amber sat 2 seats away, eyes fixed on her tablet, not on me. By the end of the review, the flaws were too big to ignore, and I shut the project down on the spot. The room went quiet. Blake stared at the table, his confidence gone. Amber didn't look up. For the first time, it was clear to everyone that he wasn't untouchable. I closed the binder and slid it back to him. "We're freezing Kepler effective today. All resources move to the Atlas pilot. Amber, I'll need your team to handle the transition plan." Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. Blake sat there with his hands folded, no comeback ready. That was the first time I saw Blake lose the room, and Amber knew it. After the Kepler freeze, Blake's swagger took a hit. He still strutted around the office, but it was brittle. Amber kept her head down in meetings, speaking only when directly asked. 2 weeks later, whispers started. Someone had been hinting in break rooms that I was making life difficult for certain people. The implication was clear: abuse of my new authority. It didn't travel far. The technical teams knew better. They'd seen me kill a bad deal, not people's careers. Then came the real play. One Thursday afternoon, Helena forwarded me a vendor document, an updated quote for a systems integration. It showed my digital signature on a change order that approved a non-compliant deployment. If true, it was a breach of policy that could have triggered a major penalty. I knew immediately I hadn't signed it. My approval process required 2-step authentication and an internal compliance check. The metadata on the PDF didn't match the company template. I didn't call anyone out. I didn't send a warning. Instead, I pulled the audit logs from our document management system. Every revision leaves a digital fingerprint: who opened it, when, and from where. I traced the altered file to an after-hours session logged from Blake Mercer's laptop. The access was made at 10:14 p.m. from his assigned workstation. One more check. Our security badge system showed Blake entering the building at 9:58 p.m. that night and leaving just before midnight. The time lined up perfectly. There was also a second connection, an external upload to a private email address linked to Evan Ruiz, a reseller contact I'd flagged before for aggressive tactics. It wasn't just sloppy sabotage, it was coordinated. I saved the logs, copies of the original and altered documents, and a clean timeline. No commentary, no emotional notes, just facts. By the next morning, I had a file on my desk thick enough to end a career. I booked a meeting with Helena and the head of legal for Friday morning. No preamble, no hints. I just walked in with the folder. "I need to report a deliberate falsification of company documents," I said, placing the evidence on the table. We went through it step by step: original quote, altered version, metadata trail, security logs, badge swipes. I explained the policy breach it would have caused and the financial risk it posed. Not once did I mention Blake's name until the evidence pointed directly to him. Helena didn't speak for a while after I finished. Finally, she said, "We'll open a formal investigation immediately. Leave this with us. Do not discuss it with anyone." I nodded and walked out. By Monday afternoon, Blake was called into a conference room with HR and legal. He didn't come back to his desk. Security escorted him out carrying a cardboard box. Word spread fast: terminated for cause. His access was revoked before he hit the parking lot. That same week, HR pulled Amber into a separate meeting. While they couldn't tie her directly to the document falsification, they cited unprofessional conduct, conflicts of interest, and repeated complaints that had gone nowhere. Her project portfolio was stripped and she was reassigned to a support liaison role in the Legacy Systems Division, a professional cul-de-sac. She lasted 9 working days in that position before sending in her resignation. At home, she tried one last conversation. "You didn't have to destroy him," she said. "I didn't," I replied. "He destroyed himself." "And me?" she asked. "You made your choices," I said. "Now you live with them. You have a few days to move your things." 4 days later, I came home to find her car parked out front with the trunk open. Boxes were stacked on the curb. She was in jeans and a sweatshirt, moving quietly to the car without looking at me. I walked past her in the hallway as she carried a box toward the door. "Do you have everything?" I asked. She kept her eyes on the floor. "Yeah, that's the last of it." I nodded once. "All right." No handshake, no hug. She stepped outside, closed the trunk, and drove away without looking back. The place was silent again. 3 months later, the office felt different. The constant background noise of Blake's self-promotion was gone. My department had launched 2 major initiatives ahead of schedule, and client renewals were coming in strong. Teams from different divisions were collaborating without friction for the first time in years. Helena stopped by my office one afternoon after a successful product rollout. She stood in the doorway for a moment. In her eyes, I could see she recognized the changes. Projects moving smoothly, teams aligned, the constant tension that used to hang over the floor now gone. She gave a small, approving smile before leaving, her expression saying more than words could have. It was clear she understood I had taken control and restored order. Outside the company, Blake's name was making the rounds for all the wrong reasons. Industry contacts knew about the falsified document. He'd been rejected by at least 2 competitors. Amber, from what I heard, had moved to another city. She didn't leave a trace behind. No mutual friends reaching out, no message from her number. Word eventually made its way back to me. Their relationship hadn't survived past his termination. The moment the title and the paycheck disappeared, so did the future they'd been planning. They split quietly within weeks of him being escorted out. No fight, no grand ending. Just 2 people who'd bet on each other's ambition and lost everything. A couple of months later, she broke the silence. One short text lit up my phone. "I was wrong about you." I read it twice, then put the phone down without replying. Some things didn't need answers. By then, I'd started seeing someone new, someone who didn't measure strength by volume or titles. It was different, easy, no games, no power plays. Sometimes I thought back to the night Amber sat me down on our couch, telling me I wasn't enough, that she needed an alpha. I realized then she never actually knew what strength looked like. She thought it was loud confidence, bold claims, and attention in a crowded room. The truth was quieter. It was taking a hit without flinching. It was making moves without broadcasting them. It was knowing when to speak and when to let silence do the work. Amber went looking for her version of an alpha. In the end, she found out the man she'd been living with for 5 years was one all along, just not the kind she recognized. And by the time she did, it was far too late. Thank you for watching.